Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're concluding the third rebellion Huainan Let's Talk Lore series with episode 4, titled Zhuge Fall. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode. Now, last time we ended as the Wu regent, Chen, hastily executed his own Dadudu in General Zhuge, casting him as the scapegoat for the failed reinforcement of Shouchun, before rushing back to Jianye to deal with political issues at home. With Sun Chen's exit, the city of Shouchun now stands alone, and morale inside the city is starting to waver as their commander Zhuge plan of waiting for the rain has not worked one bit. From when Sima established the siege in early August to Wu's departure on September 26, not a single drop of rain has come to the aid of Shouchun's defenders, as the year 257 would turn out to be an unnaturally dry year for the Huai River Valley. Of course, Zhuge would have no knowledge of this, as by late September, Zhuge was still holding on to the dream of a sudden downpour that would wash away Sima Zhao's siege outside. So roughly 3 months into the siege, Zhuge was still quite content just holding defensively, even though dissenting voices amongst his officers started to rise. Now, you have to understand that during a full-on siege, information is not going to be transparent. So Zhu Yi's failed attacks and Sun Chen's eventual retreat were not things that Zhuge Dan and the defenders of Shouchun knew. Conversely, Sima Zhao purposely spread misinformation to the defenders inside, using spies and captured Wu turncoat units as they inform the Shouchun defenders that a large Wu army was closing in, and that the siege would be lifted in weeks, if not days. With multiple members of the Chen clan trapped inside the city with them, this lie was easily believable. So, falsely believing that they would have more than enough supplies as Zhuge had initially prepared almost a year worth of food, Zhuge upped the unit rations for everyone to help bolster the troops' morale and to better prepare everyone for the sally out battle that was to come once the Wu reinforcement arrives. For Sima Zhao, the purpose of these lies was to put Zhuge and the defenders into a false sense of security that would discourage them from trying to desperately break the siege, as after all, there were 180,000 troops inside. Additionally, giving someone false hope only to take it away later is far more crushing to one's spirit. And sure enough, days turned into weeks, as not only were there no sight of Wu reinforcement, there were also not a single drop of rain, as the mood inside Shouchun took a turn for the worse. Soon, officers like Jiang Ban and Jiao Yi started to question Zhuge defensive strategy, as they pleaded with their commander to sally out to fight Sima Zhao head-on. But Zhuge refused, and even considered executing Jiang Ban and Jiao Yi on the basis that their dissenting voices were damaging to the overall morale. Even though they would be spared in the end, both Jiang Ban and Jiao Yi lost all hope in Zhuge as the two of them, along with their personal retinues, ultimately decided to defect to Wei, as they would sneak out in the middle of the night to surrender to Sima Zhao's forces. Not only did this group bring Sima Zhao up-to-date and accurate information about the situation inside Shouchun, another gift would also land in Sima Zhao's lap when brothers Quan Yi and Quan Yi, who were members of the prestigious Chen clan of Wu, ended up fleeing from Wu with their mother to defect to Sima Zhao. Now, historical documents only cite family dispute as the reasoning for their defection, and I can only guess that it had something to do with their inheritance. Quan Yi and Quan Yi were the second and third son of Quan Xu, who was the oldest son of the family patriarch Quan Cong. But despite being the eldest son, Quan Xu did not inherit the bulk of Quan Cong's titles and retinues because Quan Xu was born from Quan Cong's first wife, while his third brother, Quan Yi, was the son of Princess Sun Luban, and thus naturally the more favored son in the family. Therefore, when Quan Xu died of illness back around 252, his three sons in Quan Jing, Quan Yi, and Quan Yi probably didn't get much to split amongst themselves. Now, with most of the Chen clan trapped inside Shouchun, there was probably a disagreement amongst the remaining Chen clan members back in Jianye, and brothers Quan Yi and Quan Yi, who were now marginalized members of the clan, probably felt bullied or mistreated, leading to their ultimate defection. Regardless of the reason, their arrival inside Sima Zhao's camp sparked Sima Zhao's advisor, Jia Chong, into coming up with a cunning ploy. Jia Chong promised the brothers that if they wrote a letter to their entrapped clan members inside Shouchun and persuaded them to ultimately surrender to Wei, then all of them would end up with administrator positions and second marquis titles. All they had to do is write that Chen had placed the blame on the failed reinforcement of Shouchun squarely on the Chen clan, and already executed the entire clan back in Wu, and that they were the only survivors to escape. With nothing to lose and seemingly a great future awaiting them in Wei, Quan Yi and Quan Yi agreed as they wrote this letter and sent one of their servants that the other Quan clan members would know into Shouchun. Once the Quan clan members inside Shouchun read the letter, their hearts sunk as they had no reason to doubt Sun Chen's brutality. So after a short discussion, they collectively agreed to surrender their forces over to Sima Zhao. And with around 20,000 retinue troops directly under their command, Zhuge Dan was also powerless to stop them from fleeing out of Shouchun, as in late November of 257, the Quan clan of Wu defected to Sima Zhao and Wei, as the defender morale inside the city reached rock bottom. It is also worth noting that Jia Chong and Sima Zhao were true to their words, as every member of the Quan clan ended up receiving administrator positions and a second marquis title. For the remaining defenders inside, it was now clear that there was no Wu reinforcement on their way, and that their only hope going forward was to somehow break the siege on the city, given their ever-dwindling food and supplies. So for the next month, Zhuge Dan, Wen Qing, and Tang Zi collectively attempted multiple times to break Sima Zhao's encirclement on the city, only to fail every time, as food, supply, manpower, and hope all continued to deplete. By January 7th of 258, the tension inside Shouchun was on a knife's edge, as old rivals in Zhuge Dan and Wen Qing finally butted heads over a disagreement in ration distribution. Wen Qing argued that Zhuge Dan was unfairly giving the Wu troop less ration. Soon the argument turned violent, as a brawl between Zhuge Dan's troops and Wen Qing's troops erupted inside the city, and in the chaos, Zhuge Dan would personally kill Wen Qing, leading Wen Qing's two sons in Wen Yang and Wen Hu to flee the city with their remaining troops, as they had no choice but to surrender back to the Wei forces. Now, usually, double defections are not treated kindly, especially when you can make the argument that it was Wen Yang's night raid that had ended Sima Shi's life. But Sima Zhao graciously accepted Wen Yang and Wen Hu's surrender, and even made Wen Yang a general, along with a marquis title. Now, Sima Zhao did not do this because he was merciful. He did this because he wanted Wen Yang and Wen Hu to go back outside of Shouchun city walls to show the defenders inside that surrendering to Wei was a great option. As a matter of fact, Wen Yang was instructed to yell at the defenders on the wall to tell them that if Wei was willing to accept and reward someone like himself, who had previously defected from Wei, then of course Wei would accept someone like you, and that there was no reason for you to die pointlessly for Zhuge Dan's crimes. And when Sima Zhao observed and saw that Wen Yang could get within 200 paces of the city wall without any of the defenders firing an arrow back at Wen Yang, Sima Zhao knew that the morale inside the city had officially cratered, and that now was finally the time to assault the city head-on, as the siege for the past 5 months had just been a passive encirclement with no costly direct assault against the well-fortified walls of Shouchun. And the walls of Shouchun would hold on for roughly 1 more month before it would be finally breached on February 20th. Zhuge Dan would try to flee the city, but would ultimately be killed by Sima Zhao's military advisor Hu Fen, who was the older brother of Hu Lie and the second son of Hu Zun. The remaining Wu generals, such as Tang Zi, all surrendered and were graciously given generalships in Wei, while Zhuge Dan's personal retinue refused to surrender even after the death of Zhuge Dan. The loyalty to Zhuge Dan was so immense that hundreds of his personal retinue were tied up and placed on a chopping block. An official would come up to the first one and ask if he was willing to surrender to Wei. When he refused, he would be executed. Then the official would ask the next person, and so forth. And for Zhuge Dan's personal retinue, not one chose to surrender, as all of them would be eventually executed. Now at this point, Sima Zhao did consider a continued attack into Wu territory, utilizing the connections and knowledge of all the recently surrendered Wu generals, such as the Chen clan members and Tang Zi. But General Wang Ji stepped in, arguing that they had just scored an immense victory, and that after such a lengthy campaign, it was best to regroup and not make the same mistake as the former Wu regent Zhuge Ke, who thought to extend his victories at Dongxing only to fall flat on his face at Hefei. This was especially important given that they had mobilized parts of the Wei Western forces, and with Jiang Wei continuing his probing attacks out west, it was best to take the win and reset. Sima Zhao ended up listening to Wang Ji's suggestions and named him as the new general who conquers the east, in charge of the Yang province forces, along with the marquis title of Dongwu Hou. And with Wang Ji being loyal and already 69 years old, there would be no more rebellions in Huainan. And it also means that our series here is coming to an end, as we'll return next week with the final act of our Fall of Wei Let's Talk Lore series, where we will look at Sima Zhao's battles with Emperor Cao Mao, both politically and literally, as Emperor Cao Mao's heroic and tragic end will officially doom the Wei dynasty. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!